My DJ library was a mess. It was full of missing files, duplicates, and tracks I never played. It got so bad that I deleted the entire thing about a year ago and started from scratch. If you're feeling overwhelmed with your library like I was, I want to show you 8 simple steps I've been using regularly on hundreds of tracks to keep my library organised without the pain. If you're struggling with a messy or large library, you're definitely not alone. In fact, 54% of you said you never deleted a track. That's a big problem. But why is it so stressful, and what can we do about it? I always thought removing tracks from my library is all or nothing, and the fear of loss made it really hard to even get started. But it turns out there was a really easy solution: backing it up. And please do this before you start deleting stuff from your library. To back up in Rekordbox, go to File, Library, and Backup. If you need a more detailed guide, there's a video on the channel. You'll be amazed at how much mentally easier it is to get rid of things once you've done this. With that out of the way, I want you to start thinking of your library like a garden. Before we start planting anything new, we need to rip out the weeds and prepare the soil. Now, one common misconception I get asked about all the time is whether your music files are actually stored in Rekordbox. The short answer is no. All Rekordbox does is create a link to a file on your computer, sort of like a phone directory. But this can cause some annoying issues. Over time, you might rename or delete files or folders, which can lead to those links getting broken. This means Rekordbox will be peppered with missing tracks, and we need to sort those out before we do anything else. Let's take a look at this track in Rekordbox. I can find what file it's linked to by right-clicking and do Show in Finder. If I rename the file on my computer and then try to load it in Rekordbox again, it can no longer find it. And it will let you know with this little exclamation mark icon. We've got a couple of options we can use to try and relink these files. You can either right-click on the file itself and choose Relocate, which lets you manually choose the file. Or you can use Auto Relocate, which will scan some common folders on your computer. If you like, you can add your own folders to Auto Relocate in Preferences, Advanced, Database, then under Auto Relocate Search Folders, click on the Add button to add some more search locations. Another faster method you can use is Rekordbox's Missing File Manager, which lets you do multiple files at once. Go to File, Display All Missing Files. This gives you the same options, but is a faster way to see everything that's missing at once. If you've still got missing files after doing this process, it's a strong indicator they're probably long gone and it might be time to delete them. One of the most common problems with an older library is it can be full of tunes with low audio quality. In my old library, some of the tracks I had were 96 kilobytes a second. You really shouldn't be playing anything less than 320 these days, so it's time to get rid of some of these old, bad quality files. There are 2 things we need to do to deal with this. First, we need to create an intelligent playlist. Right-click on Playlists, do Create New Intelligent Playlist, give it a name, and then in the drop-down, select DJ Play Count and set it to 0. Now, click the small plus icon to add another rule and choose Date Added. Set this to Is Not in the Last 1 month. That's to make sure we don't pull in any tracks we haven't played just because we've only just got them. Click OK and the playlist will auto-populate with all the tracks matching those rules. Now, make sure the bitrate column is showing by right-clicking and selecting bitrate. Once that's done, click on it to sort so we have the worst bitrate quality at the top. Select everything under 320 kilobytes a second. Now press Delete. Remember how we spoke about how your DJ library is just a list of links to files? That means even if we remove the file from here, it will still be sitting on our hard drive, taking up space. This is more complicated to deal with, so we're not actually going to delete anything from Rekordbox just yet. Instead, for now, we're just going to put a little marker on them. Once you've selected your low bitrate tracks, click on the info icon and assign them a color. I'm going to use purple in this video, but you can use whatever you want. I'll explain why later in the video, so keep watching. So why bother with this intelligent playlist at all? Why not go ahead and get rid of anything that's a bad bitrate? Well, if you have something that's a bad bitrate, but you still play it a lot, that means one of 2 things. You love the track so much you're prepared to put up with this rubbish quality, or it's the only copy of that track you can find. To deal with this, after you've done step 1, right-click on the intelligent playlist and choose Edit the intelligent playlist. Change the rule so DJ play count is now greater than 0 and press OK. It should still be sorted by bitrate, so we're now looking for bad quality tracks that have been played one time or more. It's now a bit of a manual process to review this list and see if you either want to delete them or try and find a higher quality version of the track. Sometimes re-releases or remasters mean it's now possible to get better quality versions of old tracks that you found probably on LimeWire. A tip here is to just add these tracks to a new playlist so you can deal with them later, or you can just assign them a different colour. Beer and drops. Both examples of when doubles are awesome, but duplicates can bring DJ libraries to their knees. They waste space and make it really hard to navigate your tracks, and they were one of the biggest problems I had in my old library. There are some third-party paid tools like Lexicon which can find duplicate tracks for you. Tools like this will match the track based on the actual audio signature rather than just file names. This is particularly helpful if the duplicates have been named or tagged differently. About 2 hours after recording this video, Rekordbox released a 7.04 update that added a duplicate file manager. You can access it with File Display All Duplicated Files. It will then display a list of files it's identified as duplicates in your collection, and you can sort that list by a couple of different column headings. If you look over on the left, you might see this little drop-down arrow. Clicking on that shows you what playlist, if any, the track is in. That's a really good way of seeing which version of the duplicate you can remove without it ruining your playlists. I've done some quick testing and it doesn't look like this thing matches on audio signature, but rather track metadata. And it goes without saying there's nothing in the manual about how this thing actually works. But it is still pretty handy for a quick tidy up, and I'm willing to give Pioneer a 2% allocation of props for adding this. But it still leaves the question, how do we deal with duplicates where the metadata is not quite the same? One of the best ways to find out if someone is a twin is to ask them what their file size is. To tackle this in Rekordbox, head to your collection, right-click on column headings, and enable the size field. Click on the heading to sort by it. I also recommend enabling the file path to help with cross-checking. Right-click again on the headings and enable location. It's now a slightly tedious case of scanning through that list of files and trying to spot duplicate. The other angle we can tackle this is from outside Rekordbox in our file manager. If you're on a Mac, you can use a smart folder to quickly view all your music files in one big list. Smart folders work a bit like intelligent playlists. Navigate to your main music folder and do File, New Smart Folder. We're going to add a rule here by clicking the plus icon at the top right. Choose Kind and set it to Music. The folder will now display all music files in this folder and its subfolders. If your music is less organized and spread all over your computer, you can also get this to pull in everything from across your whole Mac by clicking this Mac at the top. But I'm going to leave it as it is for now. There are 3 approaches we can take from here. The first is to sort by name and have a look through the list trying to find duplicates. Note this uses metadata rather than the actual file name, so it's a bit more reliant on good tagging. Approach 2 is similar to what we just did in Rekordbox and sorting by the file size. The third method, and my favourite, is to just search for things like copy or brackets1, brackets2. This is standard text your computer adds when you download something twice or make duplicates. It can be a really fast and effective way of quickly getting rid of a big percentage of your duplicates. After you've found and deleted these files, you'll need to jump back into Rekordbox. Go to the Missing Files Manager, and you should now see a list of all the files you've deleted from your computer, which were also in your library. Go ahead and remove them. If you're anything like me, you might hoard different remixes of the same track. Intro edits, radio edits, vocal versions, or banjo dubs. But I found more often than not, there's only one version of a track I actually ever play. So DJ play count is also a good way of dealing with these. Head over to your collection, make sure DJ play count is visible by right-clicking the column heading and selecting it. And this time, instead of sorting by bitrate, we're going to sort by artist. Why artist and not title? I've found that often titles can be formatted slightly differently between remixes, whereas the artist tends to stay a bit more consistent. It's now a case of looking through the list and finding where you've got multiple remixes of the same track. Compare the DJ play counts as a starting point. Find the versions you rarely or never play and tag them with purple or your color of choice ready for deletion. I think of a DJ library a bit like a wardrobe. It's usually a reflection of your tastes over time. When I first started building my digital music library years ago, it was full of trance because that was all I played back then. So much so, it started hugging people at 3 AM without their consent. But the last few years, I've only played drum and bass. This meant I had thousands of tracks sitting around that I literally never played anymore. It made Rekordbox slower to load as if it needed any help, and I had all kinds of weird tags that were only applicable to trance and not drum and bass. It's time to get rid of this loved up situation. Create a new intelligent playlist, and depending on how you tag your tracks, you can do this in one of two ways. You can either use the genre field by setting the drop down to genre and then choosing what you want to remove, or if you use my tag for genres as I usually recommend, you can set the drop down to my tag and then choose the matching genre track. As before, select everything you want to get rid of and mark it with purple, ready to be deleted. If your tagging isn't 100%, you can sometimes use BPM as a proxy. But bear in mind, this only works well if the genres you want to remove versus keep have a big BPM difference, like is the case with trance and drum and bass. But even then, sometimes Rekordbox gets the BPM wrong or there's some outlier tracks. So it's always important to double check. We've now been through our garden and identified the weeds we want to remove. It's time to get our gardening gloves on, grab our trowel and start actually pulling them out the ground. At this point you should have a big list of tracks tagged with a colour so you know they're ready to be removed. First, let's get them all in one place and then we'll talk about how to remove them from your collection and your hard drive at the same time. Create a new intelligent playlist, call it to delete, set the drop down to colour and then select the colour you've been using to mark your tracks, in my case purple. Click OK and the playlist will populate. Now I wish Rekordbox did this, but it doesn't, so I spent a long time figuring out how to make this work. It's too complicated to get into in this video, but I made a Mac shortcut that can read a Rekordbox playlist and then delete those files from your hard drive. It's called Auto Delete and you can grab it for free by signing up to the newsletter in the description. Here's how it works. First, we need to right click on the deletion playlist and choose Export as M3U8. Save it to your computer. Once you've signed up to the newsletter, click the link in the welcome email. Once you've downloaded everything, click on Auto Delete and you'll get prompted to add the shortcut. Open the Mac Shortcuts app, run Auto Delete and then select the playlist file you just saved. It'll ask you if you want to continue. Click yes and then it'll go through and auto delete everything in that playlist from your hard drive. You'll need to enter your Mac password to allow it to run. After it's done, go back to the Missing Files Manager in Rekordbox. You should see everything that's been deleted. They can now also be removed from your library. If you're on Windows, I'm sorry, but let's help each other out, and if you found a way or can help find a way to automate this in Windows as well, let me know in the comments. Have you ever wondered if you've got music on your computer which isn't also in your DJ library? This is useful to know because it helps you identify files you're saving on your computer but not actually using in your DJing. And it's also handy to remind you if there's any tracks you need to actually add to your library. Unless you want to spend days manually comparing side by side, this is not an easy job. And it's something you have to use a paid tool like Lexicon to do. Until now, I spent way too long trying to solve this. But I did, and I created another Mac shortcut called Library Hunter. You also get it when you sign up to the newsletter, which you've done already, right? Let's talk through how this one works. Add the shortcut to your Mac shortcut app as before. First, we need to create a playlist of our entire Rekordbox collection. Nothing fancy here, just create a playlist called Everything. Go to your collection and drag it. Oh wait, you can't actually do that anymore. Right click, add to playlist and select the playlist. Hop over to the playlist section, right click, export playlist to file and export playlist to a file for music apps M3U8. Save it wherever you want. Now open the Mac Shortcuts app. Because we're dealing with loads of files, we need to enable a special option. In the Shortcuts app, go to Settings and then Advanced. Tick Allow sharing large amounts of data and close it. You can now run Library Hunter. First, it will ask for the playlist you just exported. Next, it will ask for the folder you want to check against. It reads subfolders too, so if your music is all in one big folder, this is going to be super easy. What it'll do now is run through that playlist and compare it to the files you have on your computer. Any files on your computer that are not in the playlist, it will pop a grey tag on. To give you a rough idea of how long this took, I ran it on a playlist of about 880 tracks, and on my M1 Max it took about 1:45. But your mileage may vary depending what computer you've got and how many missing files you actually have. Once the shortcut finishes, it will drop you a notification. We can then go into Finder. Make sure tags are visible in the sidebar by going into Finder Preferences, click on Tags, and make sure Grey is selected. Back in Finder, if you select Grey on the left-hand side, you'll see all the files that Library Hunter found. Or you can see tags at the folder level too. The missing files are now ready to be deleted or added to your collection. You've taken the first step, but keeping your library clutter-free and organized is an ongoing process. And if you don't stay on top of it, you'll be back at square one. In this video, I show you some super fast ways to organize your music folder, fix bad tagging, and easily organize your music.